The lengthy and grueling war against ISIS reached a peak in October 2019, when the group's founder was killed in what former US President Donald Trump described as a dangerous and daring nighttime raid. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, leader of the Salafi-jihadist group Islamic State or ISIS, and one of the most wanted terrorists in the world, was killed in a raid by the US military and a dog, following a special military operation conducted by the United States and codenamed Operation Kayla Mueller. Do you want to learn more about the untold story and the events that led up to his hunt and death? Keep watching this video to find out, because in today's video we will discuss the life and death of one of the most dangerous terrorists ever to walk the earth. The Caliphate. The international community heaved a sigh of relief after the death of al-Baghdadi, one of the most sought-after international terrorists. After all, it was under his leadership that the Islamic State committed numerous massacres, war crimes, and other harsh and barbaric atrocities. When al-Baghdadi assumed leadership of the Islamic State of Iraq, the forerunner of ISIS, he expanded the group's operations into Syria, capturing substantial territory and establishing connections in other countries. Al-Baghdadi declared the establishment of a caliphate in territories under Islamic State control in 2014, intending to spread it throughout the Islamic world and beyond. Despite losing territory and popular support since the beginning of 2015, the group continued to carry out and incite horrific terrorist attacks around the world. Everything we know about the special operation. The United States launched Operation Kayla Mueller, a special military operation, on October 26, 2019. The American operation was codenamed after Kayla Mueller, an American humanitarian worker who was kidnapped and executed by the Islamic State while in captivity. This covert operation was strategized to oust Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's hideout, who was the commander of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as ISIL or ISIS at the time. The operation was carried out in Syria's Idlib governorate. Baghdadi ended up killing himself and 2 children when he detonated a suicide belt while attempting to escape from US soldiers during the raid, according to General Kenneth Frank McKenzie, the US CENTCOM Central Command commander who directed the operation. Here's how that operation, which was commanded from 6,000 miles away in the White House Situation Room, played out. Background. Multiple attempts to identify and kill al-Baghdadi have been tried over the years, notably by the US or US-backed coalition troops in Syria. He had also been declared dead on several occasions, yet somehow he would always rise from his presumed grave. This is because, for nearly a decade, Baghdadi took extraordinary precautions to conceal his whereabouts until he was raided. The raid was carried out in response to the CIA's Special Activities Center intelligence effort to locate ISIL's leader. Ismail al-Itawi, a top advisor to the ISIS leader who was apprehended and condemned to death in an Iraqi jail, told the New York Times that he and others would be stripped of all their equipment and electronics. They were blindfolded and driven for hours before finally finding themselves sitting across from the so-called Caliph. After a 15 to 30-minute meeting, the guest would have to wait for hours with guards after Baghdadi had left, only to be blindfolded and driven away once again. Itawi provided Iraqi intelligence with knowledge about how those meetings would go as early as February 2018, giving agents the closest view of Baghdadi's movements. Itawi gave valuable information which helped the Iraqi multi-security agency team complete the missing pieces of the puzzle of Baghdadi's movements and places he used to hide, an Iraqi security official revealed. However, to act, US officials needed clear, credible intelligence about his whereabouts. That's exactly what they got by early October. According to various accounts, a disgruntled ISIS member in Syria alerted Kurdish forces about Baghdadi's likely whereabouts. Mazloum Abdi, the leader of the Kurdish fighters, tweeted that the US and the Kurdish fighters had been cooperating on intelligence for over 5 months. According to the New York Times, the CIA obtained the initial intelligence on Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi just after the arrests of one of his wives and a courier, and then worked closely with Iraqi and Kurdish intelligence officials in Iraq and Syria, even placing spies in the region to track his movements, according to 2 US officials. However, according to Iraqi officials, the breakthrough happened after a smuggler, a woman suspected to be his wife, and Baghdadi's nephew, provided information on routes and destinations concerning his movements. The smuggler had previously relocated the mistresses of 2 of Baghdadi's brothers and Baghdadi's children. Iraqi officials also claimed that the arrest of Baghdadi's brother-in-law Muhammad Ali Sajid al-Zobai facilitated the discovery of a desert tunnel linking 2 hideouts stocked with merchandise near Al-Qaim, Iraq, thereby uncovering a smuggling ring to locate Baghdadi. However, a US official refuted Iraq's claim that Baghdadi's exact location was revealed by Iraq, maintaining that the operation was launched when he arrived in a region where they had already established intelligence operations. Even the best soldiers in the world can be overwhelmed by the unpredictability of combat, so US commandos trained and prepared for weeks before the raid. The mission's preparation and execution were hindered by 3 challenges in particular. First, the area in northern Syria where Baghdadi was held is al-Qaeda territory, with Syria and Russia controlling the airspace above it. If things went south, US troops may have ended up in a gunfight with other terrorists or at risk of Russian and Syrian anti-aircraft missiles. Trump, on the other hand, claimed that the US had put a call to Russia to inform them that US aircraft would be flying in the area, but he never specified why the US wanted to fly there. Second, Trump had ordered US soldiers to withdraw from northern Syria 3 weeks before the attack, even though the US intelligence community was closing in on Baghdadi's location. As some US officials had pointed out, Trump's decision further complicated planning for the mission, as American fighters and equipment had begun to quickly vacate the area. Third, Baghdadi proved unpredictable. He tends to change immediately he had a lot of cash. He tends to change, like on a dime, where he'll be going to a certain location. All of a sudden, he'll go someplace else and you'll have to cancel, Trump stated. At least 2 US military missions were called off only minutes before they were to begin, though it's unclear if this had anything to do with Baghdadi's impromptu decision-making. However, according to the president, the commandos ended up getting everything they needed for the green light. This was one where we knew he was there, and you can never be 100% sure because you're basing it on technology more than anything else. But we thought he was there, and then we got a confirmation, Trump added. Jackpot. Trump, joined by Vice President Mike Pence, the Secretary of Defense, and 2 other top military officers started watching the raid in the Situation Room of the White House around 5 p.m. Washington, D.C. time on the D-Day, as 50 to 100 US commandos took off in 8 helicopters, mostly CH-47 Chinooks, from an Iraqi military outpost near Erbil. It was a risky flight, and the plane took fire while flying low to the terrain for around 70 minutes. They also had to fly over territory controlled by Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Russia, increasing the risk that someone would make a mistake thinking the US was targeting them. When the commandos eventually arrived at their destination, they attempted to summon Baghdadi from the compound to surrender. A few people and 11 children were able to escape, but the ISIS leader remained inside, as anticipated, prompting US troops to enter by force. They blew holes into the side of the building, not wanting to go through the main door because that was booby-trapped, the president disclosed. The White House said in a statement that subsequent fighting resulted in the deaths of 5 enemy forces inside the building and others outside. Baghdadi, however, grabbed 3 of his children and ran into a labyrinth of tunnels beneath the compound wearing an explosive vest. The US military dispatched a dog after him, while a robot that could also travel into the tunnel to track him remained in reserve just in case. Baghdadi detonated the explosive vest, killing himself and his 3 children, terrified for his life while whimpering, crying and screaming all the way, according to Trump. On Sunday, Defense Secretary Mark Esper told ABC News that he didn't know the specifics of Baghdadi's emotional state in his final moments, but Trump insists.
He died like a dog. He died like a coward.
During the raid, American fighters visually identified Baghdadi, but they used a DNA test to compare what they found to a sample they already had in their possession. They confirmed it was their target when it tested positive 15 minutes after Baghdadi's death. The mission commander called and said, 100% confidence, Jackpot, according to National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien. Jackpot meant we got him. Following Baghdadi's death, US forces remained in the compound for about 2 hours to collect extremely sensitive material and information from the raid, much of it relating to ISIS origins and future plans, in which the military is particularly interested. According to the Pentagon, 2 adult men were seized alive and are now in US custody. According to Army General Mark Milley, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Baghdadi's remains were also taken into custody and the disposal was complete and handled appropriately. The remains of at least 2 of his wives, who had also been strapped with bomb vests, were left behind. The US razed down the entire compound before going back the way they came, to ensure it didn't become a shrine to the slain ISIS leader. Only 2 US soldiers and the dog were wounded. It was always going to be a daring mission from the start. With additional information collected at Baghdadi's final location, the US is likely to use the new intelligence to hunt down some of the group's remaining commanders or disrupt the organization's operations in some way. A day after the raid, the US assassinated a key ISIS spokesperson suspected to be Baghdadi's successor. However, it's unclear whether the newly acquired intelligence facilitated the strike. Considering this, and the fact that Baghdadi was killed, the operation was certainly worth the danger, despite the numerous obstacles. So, what do you think about ISIS and the US intervention to end terrorism? Please let us know in the comments section below.